Hey everyone, welcome to another edition, the second edition, I should say, of the cartoon episode Flashback. You know, last time we looked at bringing down Babyface from Tails, but now we're going to take a look at something not as long, but you could consider it sort of like an episode, but it's basically a short. It's a short from the 1940s, and it's considered, one of Disney's strangest, most unusual, well, let's just plain out say it. What the, excuse my language, Lord, when I say this. Please, Lord, please forgive me when I say this, Lord. In your name I pray, amen. But one of the most what the fuck shorts they have ever made. And of course, in case you don't know what I'm talking about the 1940s animated short, Donald Duck short, Duck Pimples. Yeah, you talk about strange folks. This one ranks up there. Basically, in case you don't know, the premise, if you want to look at it as a premise, is like this. It's a stormy, rainy night. Donald is just relaxing, can't go out or anything, so he's just relaxing. And, just relaxing, turning off the light, letting his imagination run wild, if you will. And I guess getting relaxed and all that, he starts to let his imagination run wild. So he turns off the light, he's listening to the radio. And then after that, like I said, his imagination starts to run wild, because it's like, because think about it. It's raining. Think about it this way. Put yourself in a situation where it's nonstop raining and thundering and lightning and all that for the whole day. And you're trying to basically calm your senses. You're trying to relax, take things in stride. And all of a sudden, it just finally gets to you to the point that you need to find something to do, so you let your imagination run wild. And that's exactly what Donald does here. As crazy as that sounds, he lets his imagination run wild. And how does he let his imagination run wild? By imagining there's certain things going on. For example, after he turns back on the light, he imagines that his chair, there's a gorilla that he imagines that there's a gorilla behind him because it's being mentioned on the radio. And what does this cause? Well, it causes his imagination to make his chair morph into a gorilla. And then after that, more hilarity and more what the beep ensues. Next thing we do, we get a book salesman arrive at the door, almost in the form of a serial psychotic killer, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, if you buy all this, blah, 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 blah." And then he leaves, but he didn't just leave after he trips over the imaginary bike. He vanishes. Yeah, he vanishes and leaves all these books. So basically, again, more what the blank hilarity or situations in this cartoon ensue. Basically, Donald's reading the book comes to life, all the characters pop out of the book, and basically because Donald's imagination's running wild, the story comes to life right in front of him. The story comes to life right in front of him. Excuse me. But again, the story comes to life right in front of him. And again, this is where a lot of the WTF starts to come in. Because then you get this one character, her name is, I think, Lana or something like that. And no, it's not Lana Lionheart from the Lionhearts, no. It's just another character named Lana that was given this name back in the 40s, if not the 80s, just to establish who she was. Because she did show up sort of like in a cameo appearance along with the other characters from that story in the Disney Halloween special. Well, not Halloween special, but in Disney's Disney's DTV Monster Bash special. But anyway, to me, I remember this short not just for its unusualness and its crazy antics and hilarity, but I remember it for one thing, and I think anybody watching this, or listening to this, I should say, listening to this review, or this flashback episode, this CEF cartoon episode flashback episode 2, I think we remember this just as well. Okay, now the way this Lana character appears is her arms comes out of the book almost like in a snake-wise. Almost like snake-wise. You know, it just comes out of the book almost snake-like. And, of course, the detective or inspector, if you will, has to pull her out of the book. Of course, after he eats her bracelets like donuts with coffee. Go figure. Yeah, like I said, go figure. But anyway, long story short here. The one thing I remember most about this is when this girl character, she's looking for her pearls, if you will, because follow me here, that's the basis of the book Donald was reading. She's a girl looking for her pearls, right? So she starts looking everywhere. When she thinks she spots them, and they turn out to be pearled handcuffs that the inspector has, instead of looking elsewhere, she decides to crawl up the back and under the trench coat. Well, not the trench coat, but I guess you could say suit or whatever it is, trench coat, whatever, of the detective, of the inspector. Yeah, she opens up the back of his trench coat and crawls up his back and under the trench coat. And the next thing you see is two big lumps, like mountain lumps, that shrink down into one little compact double lump. And then as the animation goes on, the lumps that represent the Lana character on his back, that are under her trench coat, flatten out and disappear. And then on occasions, all you see is her feet, her high heels in the background, and then you don't even see those. And then here, ladies and gentlemen, is what I remember most about it. And again, anybody that's watched that short, listening to this episode, knows what I'm talking about. Knows what I'm about to talk about. And that is, the next thing we see is the girl's hands appear out of the top of the trench coat, if you will. And how do they appear? Well, first, they appear out of the top of the trench coat. She picks up the guy's derby hat, spills out, dumps the cigarettes out, and performs the magic trick of pulling the rabbit out of the hat. And then she puts the rabbit back in the hat, puts the hat back down on the guy's head. And then the next thing we see is her other hand, I think it's her left hand, after the inspector tells Donald, okay, you don't want to talk? I have a way of making you talk. So the next time we see one of her hands show up, her hand's showing up on the side of his hand, the side of his face, where his arms are to his side, calling out for the guy named Clark to bring the hot irons, right? So his hands are to the side. The inspector's hands are to the side, and her hand is right near his face like a little echoey megaphone, kind of like to echo, kind of, increase the loudness of his yell for the Clark guy to bring the hot irons. And then here's what happens. When he says bring the hot irons, he's doing the come here kind of thing, or he's using his index finger to indicate bring them, Her hand is doing the same thing. It's curled up the same way. And then, after the Clark guy shows up, knocks the detective back, or inspector back a little bit, and kind of knocks her hand back inside of him, or back into the back of him, here's what happens next. And this is what really made it strange. The Clark guy shows up, takes his hat off, says basically take a card. The inspector takes the card with his hand, and then as he's reading it, he's scratching his forehead with his other hand. He's holding the card with his other hand, and then get this, as he's scratching his forehead, the lady's hands, the Lana lady's hands, the Lana character's hands, put the glasses on his nose, and the other hand scratches his chin, almost like acting as another pair of hands. And believe me, for anybody that saw this back when it first came out in theater back in the 40s, I don't know what to say to you folks. And for anybody that saw it like I did in the 80s and throughout the 70s and 60s and 50s, but like me saw it in the 80s with the Donald Duck show, cartoon episode, cartoon shows that Disney Channel used to have, like Quack Attack and all that, in the 80s, it's almost like you would think, I mean, come on, think about it. In real life, now this isn't real life, okay, but think about it. Think about it. Put yourself in this perspective. Put yourself in this perspective. Don't you think don't you think if you're in this inspector, you would have noticed, oh, wait a minute, I have an extra set of hands, and they're female. Where'd these come from? That you would take off your jacket and dump the woman out? Or get the woman to get off your back? I mean, and I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you this, that is what to me made this more memorable. Yeah, you had your hilarity and your ingenuity, your other unique and what the blank moments afterwards and all that. You had all that, and so you even had the author pop out of the book towards the end, and you had the pearls finally show up towards the end. And basically indicating that this all could have been nothing more than imagination in Donald's head that somehow came to life. And you know what's funny about this? Is the reaction a lot of other people have. I mean, myself and other people throughout the internet, throughout all these video uploading sites, have uploaded not just this cartoon, but have uploaded that particular scene of that particular scene that I talked about, because to them that's the most memorable thing out of this. And again, I love the reaction though when it came to this episode or came to this animated short. People there are a lot of people asking, what were the Disney animators at the time smoking? What were they smoking? What kind of LSD were they smoking or taking? What in the world was, basically they would ask, where did they come up with this banked up cartoon? Who came up with this banked up idea for an animated short? Because ever since then, because I'll tell you this, the one thing that might match up to it as being sort of like on the blankety blank, what the heck am I seeing kind of deal, would be Polly Voo Woos out of Popeye. And why? Because everything that happens to Olive in that cartoon actually happens. Anything that gets said happens. When the international guy says the girl's eyes look like limpid pools, Olive's eyes become limpid pools. When she tells Popeye at the end that she feels like butter in his hands, she melts into a running puddle of butter with just a smile in her eyes left. Or with just a smiley face on it, on the puddle, and she just runs down the floor with little dry spots appearing here and there in the puddle, and one near her eye, and it's like, and again, that is the only other animated short that I know of that can match up to this. That on a major media basis, on a major well-known studio basis, animation-wise, can match up in a sense with Duck Pimples. It can. It can, and I'm not lying about that. That's just my opinion. But to me, this is what made Duck Pimples so memorable, because it was one of Disney's rare, and I'm not sure if that's a good name to put for it, but rare what the blank shorts they ever came up with at that time. It was. It's one of those rare one. It was one of those rare animated shorts that I'm pretty sure those that saw it for the first time in the theaters during the 40s, that they would walk out with their kids, because they probably took the kids to see it, and they'd be like, "What?" And I'm sure parents would be looking at themselves, going like, "What did we all just see?" you know. But anyway, you can find this short on various uploading sites like the YT, Daily Motion. I'm pretty sure Vimeo, VO, maybe Blimp. You can find it definitely on the Donald Duck, Walt Disney Treasures set, I believe, if it's still available. But again, it's just one of those that you wonder, just like some people have commented even to this day and reacted to, what the blank were these animators, these people thinking when they came up with this short. But that's all I'm going to say on it. Thank you for listening in to the second edition of the cartoon episode Flashback. Second episode. Let me know what you guys think down below about this episode and what I talked the animated short that was talked about here. And I will talk to y'all later. God bless. Take care.